having Declan Rice ask for signings in January for me was embarrassing. Like, to me, that's embarrassing. A player should never really be talking about getting players. Like that to me, that, we were in dire straits. So yeah, that window set us up for failure. And, we paid the ultimate cost because there was just no grace. I mean, everything that could have went wrong went wrong. And so I feel like I want them to assume the worst and then make sure that they prepare for that outcome. And then we hope for the best, you know?
You said it there. Like I think this season was, how do I make it make sense? We didn't win the war. We won 1-2 battles, top six record, great. Still finished second.
Right.
Not that I'm
I
happy
need to
about
open the
that. It
door
could have.
for them. Give me 2 seconds. Keep talking.
Go on, go on. As I was saying, people, like for me, it's we won 1-2 wars. I mean battles. We didn't win the war. Top six record was still there. Beat Madrid, all of that kind of stuff. But be all and end all, we didn't win anything. Yes, I would have loved. You lot know me. I always sit here and say I want to win the FA Cup. Wouldn't have minded the League Cup because we was in the semis. That never happened. We all know the Prem and the Champs is where we want to go. Champions League, I'm more try and play it by ear and where we can go. The Premier League. This weren't a race. Yeah, we finished second. It weren't a race. And I think there's a lot of reasons as to why that happened. And I think people are very naive. People can there's many different factors. There's not actually one reason as to why things didn't happen. But people like to do this whole injury thing, which played a part. But when everyone was fit, we was complaining about low blocks. Fuckery was still going on. There's many different, of course, there's been refereeing decisions. We've not killed games. We've not had that individual brilliance when everything's going wrong just to get the result. But all of these things that we're talking about, and Jess is going to talk about, and no doubt between the two channels we'd have covered, every one of these things was spoken about last season or the season before the one that's just gone. Unfortunately, if nothing changes, nothing changes, and history is written by the victors. We can't write anything. 20 years from now, we know what them lot down the lane did, and I definitely know because I saw it with my own eyes. We saw what Chelsea did. We saw a bunch of underdog sides, not even in this country, go and win stuff. So it's jarring. Jess, you made a point about January, and I'm more blame the summer period, I guess indirectly on the owners, but I think Edu, Arteta, and everybody in between fumbled. January, kind of what you're saying, I think that's on the board. Whatever I feel about Arteta or the players or this one or that one, and there's no sporting director, you could see we're going to run out of steam. And it ties me to ask you this, because Graham has said it, yeah. DG, I think it's about time the owners feel some of the pressure. We've had 4 windows since Arteta took the helm where we didn't spend a penny. That's not good enough. He's been asking for a striker for 2 years. Where are you at with the owners? And do you think like the owners need pressure, or is it a cop-out for you to just simply look at the owners?
Listen, the Cronkies, I do think, have found a way to kind of spin a narrative or, a little bit of PR around how since 2018, since they've gotten full ownership, they put a lot of money in and they're super serious about getting Arsenal to the top and all of that. But I still don't see the same application that I see from Chelsea and Man City in particular. I think their ownership really wants to win, and you can tell because no matter what, they're buying players, they're almost overspending, fully stocking their teams with talent. Whether they get it right or wrong is irrelevant to me. And I think we still see almost like a cautiousness or a little bit of like a, reluctancy to really go full throttle with KSC. We do just enough. And so ultimately it all comes down to them, because if you don't like Mikel or you don't think he's good enough, they're the one who's got him on the second highest wage in the world. They're the ones who hired him. They're the ones who are putting out the PR that he's under no pressure. So yeah, I think the Cronkies should be under more pressure, but it's really difficult to get the ownership out, because as long as we're a consistent top 4 side, their investment is protected. And that's pretty much, the money stopped coming in once I think they felt like we were a consistent top 4 side. Once they got us back there, then it was like, okay, now we're good. Now we can just kind of, do we really need to do that? Do we really need to do this? And, so knowing that it's probably going to be next to impossible to get the ownership out, it's really hard to get the owners out.
They've survived worse.
Yeah. The next best thing, or the next thing, is the manager. And I think that's why people are hyper focused on Mikel. Now, when people say like, oh, well, he asked for a center forward for 2 seasons, this is true to a certain extent, but he also told Sesko that he wasn't going to get as many minutes as maybe he would like, because Kai Havertz would be starting. So,
and you spent 65 million over there.
Exactly. And from that moment to the end of the window, there was no other striker brought in. So again, your comfort with Kai Havertz and your affinity for him meant that you were okay with not bringing in another striker, or at least maybe taking up one of Edu's backup options, which reports were saying that it was Munoz from Fulham, and he didn't want that. So if you were super desperate for a striker, you would have lied to Sesko and got him here, or brought in Munoz. It wasn't until the January window where you knew shit was slipping away where you wanted Ollie Watkins. But
You was less diplomatic on things. You was quite specific,
yeah,
Arteta. Yeah.
exactly. So I think Arteta's changed his tune from the summer to now, and he's pretty much put all the blame on, the higher ups. I think the way that he speaks about things feels like, not like you're lucky to have me because I kept you in second, but basically, you know, you're in second.
He's getting goosebumps.
Yeah, we got in second, and I kind of kept you guys there. I did that, but the board let me down, and so we need to let them do their job. But the idea that he had his hands tied behind his back and he's not culpable in any way, I do think is disingenuous. But it is a group. This was a group shit sandwich for sure.
And that's and you said it there, just like it was a group shit sandwich. Everybody has to take accountability. Like everybody knows me. If I could, I'd get the KSC out, but unfortunately, they're not going. We all know how they run stuff, and they could turn around and say to me, "Deluded, you know how we run stuff, rightly or wrongly. We put people in place, we let them do their things. Everybody sits here and says, oh, if Arteta gets sacked, who's going to replace him?" Bearing in mind, when we got Arteta, he never had a CV, he never had anything. They backed him, they've given him money, we've broken transfer records, they've given him and his coaching staff new deals. They could sit there and say this, and unfortunately for Arteta, if you didn't think you could do stuff here, you wouldn't have taken the job, because you did reject it the year Emre came in, and you wouldn't have signed the new deal. I don't care how much you get paid, but you wouldn't have signed a new deal for 15 mil, and maybe your coaching staff F off. So how far does that go? If anyone in life signs for any job, whether you work in retail or whatever, fair enough, the company might trick you, but at some point you're going to look around the working practices. You're going to ask yourself, is this the best place for me to earn financially? Am I learning here? And if not, you're going elsewhere. So it don't really go far. Obviously, Arteta could leave and it kind of stays the same. We're used to this, but I think it's a bit of a cop-out. It kind of ties into this as well. Just one love for the super chat, my boy. If the transfer window is a success, who gets the credit? Arteta, Berta, or the owners? If it's a failure, who's going to get the blame? Where do you stand on that?
Well, we know that if it's a success, it's all Mikel. If it's a failure, it's Berta. And that's kind of how it was with Edu. Edu was pretty much, I think he was pretty much thrown under the bus. He was pretty much thrown under the bus in terms of, Arteta does have a lot of say in the transfers, and we know that because Ornstein has said that. And when the transfer windows were seen as a positive, like when we got Declan Rice and stuff like that, it was, oh, he masterminded this, and he, especially once they thought that Kai Havertz had started to turn a corner, the narratives and the PR were coming out that, Arteta was right and that he convinced everyone, and Edu and them didn't know what they were doing, but Mikel knew more. We know how the split goes. If it goes right, Mikel did it. If it goes wrong, Berta sabotaging him. But for me, it's always a combination of everyone. It's, if it goes badly, I'm going to be looking at Berta sideways, and I'm also going to be looking at Mikel.
Exactly what Jess said there. I'm past the point of he say, she say. Reality is, I'm not at London Coley. I do think fans buy into whatever fantasy they want. If they believe in Arteta ridiculously to the point where he can't be given criticism, they'll paint imaginary scenarios that, oh, he was let down, he asked for this, he asked for that. I personally think it's everyone. Like Jess said, everybody shares the W's, everyone shares the L's. I keep saying it, and I'm a broken record. When I was younger, grandma's house, playing with my cousins, and there's 5 of us, 6 of us in the room. I might have been reading a book. The other kids must have been playing and broke something. Everyone's in trouble. They tell us about collaboration. Go and collaborate in it. And that's actually something that I'm a bit fearful of, because obviously Berta's coming with a big reputation. He's an internal, but external factor where we've got a bit of belief. I don't want people to sit there and blame him, because I don't know if this is going to be the Berta window. But yeah, one love for the super chat. Everybody's to blame. In the same way, everybody's to get the praise, man. Question, DG Jess. The Cronkies wanted top 4. When they had part shares, they haven't changed. Maybe people should get off Arteta's back and call them out. I think everybody's called out everyone, but the gaffer's not going anywhere. I mean, the owner's not going anywhere. And to be fair with you, Are they the reason why we haven't necessarily won silverware? I can't sit here and say they haven't backed Arteta. Is it what I would want to see back in? They can't sit here and act like that. When it was Wenger, cool, you could say that. It's not. I don't believe it. I really don't.
People have
I
to
don't.
remember that, like, and this is my, kind of like one of the debates going on the timeline about this whole, like, should we have won something by now, or at least been to a final? And I do believe wholeheartedly that we've had a team for a while now that I feel very confident could have won something by now. Not necessarily Premier League and Champions League, but 100% could have won a cup or something. And people are really harping in on, yeah, but he wanted a striker and he begged for it and didn't get it. And so his hands were tied. And I'm like, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the fact that like when we went into the Manchester United game at home, we didn't feel like we were out of that competition. When we're playing Newcastle at home, we didn't feel like we're out of that competition. I think a lot of these excuses come after the fact, but no matter what injuries, red cards, or lack of signings we had this season, Arteta's had many opportunities to win something with his team and hasn't done so. And so there's just no way that all of the context blankets over every single chance at a trophy that we failed to get. And I think that's pretty much what, like, Thierry was kind of saying, is like, at this
Oh, we're
stage,
gonna
we
get
should
into
have at
that.
least gotten to a final. But people were just like deflecting and being weird about it. And I'm like, I think all of us can pretty much, like, anybody who's saying that it makes sense that we haven't won anything at this stage, I really think is lying, because we should have at least gotten to a final. Because you don't have to be the best team to get to a final. Both
Because
Spurs and
that helps them sleep
United
at
were
night,
in
man.
finals,
That's what
so
helps them sleep, Jess. That's what helps you sleep. Like football borders on religion. If you try and tell people what they believe in isn't necessarily a lie or whatever, then there's issues. I'm a real gunner. No, but this is the problem I have, because people have selective hearing. At the start of this, what we're 20 minutes in, me and Jess literally said there are many factors in ingredients, better yet, into the season: injuries, red cards, this one, that one, and you've mentioned Arteta getting all the blame. Jess said it better than me. We can't just blame him. Everyone's there. So this is what I mean about being disingenuous and hearing what we want to hear. Moving away from that, this is an interesting
yeah.
one. I ain't ever heard this question. Shout out Arsenal perspective. You've been here all day. Is there any more that Josh can do in terms of pressure for support from Stan to get us closer to the promised land? I don't know, man. Tell
Guys,
your dad to love the football club as much as the other sports, innit?
I was like, be honest, guys. Like, if you've watched Succession or any type of show where there's like this family business and they have all these different businesses, they always kind of like, the dad is always willing to like shove off the thing he cares about the least on like the most, like, the son that really wants to be a part of the family business. That's basically what happened. We have been pawned off to Josh because Stan, he doesn't give a fuck about us. He only cares about his American sports team. So I'm not sure that
Unfortunately.
like Josh could do much more than what he's doing now, because they have a set amount of money and investment that they want to give to Arsenal. And so I don't think anything is really going to change in that respect. I think knowing who our owners are, we need to be in a position where everything underneath that maximizes what we're going to get from them. And I feel like that's the biggest difference between us and Liverpool, is that Liverpool's owners, and like they always complain about their owners, but they still maximize to the best of their ability what they do get from their owners, where we kind of fuck around quite a bit. We really do. The manager doesn't get the most out of what he has. The sporting director and the transfer team or whatever doesn't buy the right players all the time. We don't sell well. Like, there's just a lot of stuff. So yeah, I don't know if Josh can go and ask dad for more money, but I think he's, we're pretty much his pet project. So I don't really know. I don't know what he can do.
And I just feel, rightly or wrongly, obviously things are subjective and things could be reviewed. But there's one thing: getting angry at the manager, the players, being sympathetic to everyone. Again, disclaimer, because people want to hear exactly what they want to hear. Everybody's to blame, yeah. But at the same time, I feel there's certain home truths you have to accept. Rightly or wrongly, we know how the Cronkies operate, as just as eloquently put. We know how they operate. Arteta has signed a 50 mil a year contract. And I've looked at myself with him, yeah, and it's almost like this season I feel this is one that's going to not scar him in necessarily a negative way, but scar him as a manager. This is where you're going to have to learn from. I keep finding myself go into one word, and that word being experience. I look at, you mentioned Liverpool. I look at Slot. Fair enough, his name's in higher regards now because he's won. But you mentioned the FFG stuff. They've got experience. Klopp was experienced in those kind of things. You know, Michael Edwards was experienced. I know we've got Burton now, but we've had Edu pissing away. You either sign stars or you find them emerging talents, which Liverpool have had plenty, or even not necessarily emerging talents, players that are good, but nobody's taking a chance on them. And if anybody, whether that's Berta, Arteta, rightly or wrongly, because the Cronkies are not going anywhere. If anybody here feels they can't achieve what they can achieve within that remit, they have to leave. It's not making sense. It's not, because we've been able to flirt with the success we want. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone. Do you believe we'll genuinely get to the promised land? As I said, seeing's believing now. Like, show me in it. Don't tell me. Show me in it. Show me. Show
The
me. It would have
longer
to
it
be in
goes,
spite of the owners.
the longer it goes, the less confident I am. It's just we've had good opportunities. And personally, I do think that football is in cycles. And I think teams like Arsenal need to strike while the iron is hot for them, because
Exactly.
we build all the way up and then we'll go through a dip because our players will get older and we won't replenish right or whatever. And then we have to come back up. It takes us a long time to build up a team that's challenge worthy. And so when we have this 4 or 5 year period, we really need to strike. And for 5 of the seasons so far under Mikel, we've won nothing. So yeah, because after this season, players are going to start itching to leave, so that's already going to be like, so I'm concerned because we're
Do
not
you really
like,
believe that?
yeah, I think somebody like Saliba will want to leave if we don't win anything next season. Yeah, for sure. I
Damn.
don't know if Saka will, but I do think that we'll start to look really funny in the light if we don't win anything next season. So yeah, we're not like City where their owners are going to keep us at the top and continue to spend for and have like that dominance. We have to strike while it's hot, and we're not really doing that. So yeah, I'm concerned, but
Boy,
here we
like,
are.
yeah, man, it's upsetting. Like, obviously, a lot of people in the chat, it's almost, or a lot of sentiment around Arteta is do or die. Like, next season, you have to get it done. I would extend that and say either the Premier League or the champs. Many people might say you have to get a trophy. Some believe that the League Cup and the FA Cup isn't going to cut it. Do you feel like it is do or die for Arteta next season? And I say that to say this: like, imagine we had the season that we have this year, next year, in the sense of we're second, maybe not necessarily that many points off, but we're second. There's 2 semi-finals. We've effed up in the FA Cup, which we've done 2 years in a row, which comes down to no finishing, no strikers to finish against Liverpool United. But if we had a season like this year, next year, in terms of where we place, does he get sacked necessarily?
I don't think so, because I think that I already saw something from The Athletic come out that said that like the idea that Arteta is under pressure to win something next season are very overblown. The club are really happy with him and stuff. I think he's here until he walks away, and that is very problematic. Arsenal have this idea that they need to be a forever manager club. They want to replicate what they had with Arsene, but even what we had with Arsene, it wasn't great. We really should have maybe moved on from him earlier before it got super ugly. So yeah, I don't know why the club is like this. I don't get it. I don't understand. I believe in failing a little bit, maybe fail fast. I think with Arteta, why I gave him more time is because I knew he was a novice and he was going to need a little bit of time. But I think we're beyond that period now. And right now it's win or not. And the fact that Arsenal are not there yet, the board and stuff, we know he's not going next season if he doesn't win anything. We know that, so it's concerning. But I think the fans are going to start to turn for sure. I think the apathy will set in. You'll see more empty spots in the stadium. People won't be excited. Like, yeah, like it could get dark next season from a fan's perspective, but he's cushy.
I
You
mean,
don't
that's
give
the only
somebody
thing that
50
changes it.
million a year if you don't believe that he's the guy. You're going to stick with him.
And that's the only thing that will change. The only thing that will get rid of Arteta, if that is what people want, yeah, obviously results, but bums on seats. The minute the Cronky see no, but that's oh, let's be honest. That's what let Emre go. Like, that's what let Emre go. Like, big up Arteta. You took the job, you did what you needed to do, but it's now about getting over the line. And for some people that cut a lot of excuses for Arteta, I always say this: I don't think you rate Arteta. I definitely think you don't rate Arteta. This is coming from, I'm pretty sure on YouTube, I'm the biggest Arteta fan there is. It's the difference is I'm not going to make excuses and I'm not going to be I'm not putting Arteta above my club. You can't rate him because if you really think he's done this super job and he's got this super team and he's doing quite well as a novice manager, which two truths can live in the same realm, why on God's green earth do you not hold him to those standards? If Saka scores for 10 games in a row, you're going to big him up. If he goes on a drought for 10 games, you're going to ask what's going on. You can't
Yeah.
have Arteta up here. You can't want our team to be at the big boy table and then find all these dibby excuses. Obviously, when we go away from the banter and being bottlers and yada, 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 you can have conversations, but you can't rate him. You can't rate him. You cannot rate what he's doing that much if there's always a reason. But when things go right, you're ready to big things up. Why not just find the middle ground? Big up Arteta for where you've taken us. We are closer to our goals than we're further away. And it just feels like, as a club across all aspects, if my mic is the Premier League title, as soon as we've come on this big journey, we're here, now we're acting. And at some point, you're gonna have to try you're gonna have to try something else. You're going to
Yeah,
have to, whether that's
absolutely.
like you're gonna have to. It might not guarantee success, but how long are you gonna keep doing the same things?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see the club, like, I think what frustrates me every season is that there's never like a acceptance that this wasn't good enough. Like, it's kind of a little bit, you see some of the players maybe taking a little bit more responsibility this season, but for the most part, I feel like the people that matter, the front facing people, are always kind of putting on this front that this was not, to me, for a big club that was at the beginning of the season, the goal was to win a Champions League or a Premier League. For the season
Arteta
to
said
go
that
the way that
himself.
it did, to me, it's a disaster. Like, I thought that felt like a disaster season to me. It kind of was like it papered over the cracks that we got to the semifinals of the Champions League, but
And we're
outside of
on
that,
that, Jess. When we won, it's all Arteta. It's amazing. It's great.
yeah, it
When
was,
things go shaky, what's going on? My point is a
yeah,
middle ground. You have to
yeah,
blame
why,
everybody and praise everyone, not just one person. It's
yeah.
jarring.
I wish that at the end of the season, instead of sitting up there talking about be patient, we're gonna win things, that he would say, this wasn't good enough. You guys definitely deserve more. We're going to win the big ones next season. We're going to win something and we're going to make
Don't talk,
sure.
just do.